Alright, so we're going to try something just a little bit different today with the video, and I'm going to stand up and see how I like that and how that goes. Yesterday, you guys watched the video on the commercial exchange, or commercial revolution. Today, we're going to talk about mercantilism. Okay, mercantilism is defined as an economic theory common during the 1500s to 1750. Okay, and mercantilism is an economic theory that's really a driving force behind the age of exploration and the age of expansion. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. So first of all, the way I want you to think about mercantilism is an idea of economic nationalism. Okay, economic means health of your economy, how people make money. All right, and nationalism is pride in your country. So the easiest way to think about mercantilism is that it is pride in your nation's economy, and it's using that economy to make money for your country and to show your pride. Well, one way, and the way that we see this illustrated in mercantilism, is that all countries should be self-sufficient. Self-sufficient means that all countries should provide for their own. They shouldn't have to get anything from anybody else. They produce all of their own goods, their clothes, their food, everything. And they don't trade with anybody unless it's to make money. And that's the only reason to trade, according to mercantilism. So desire, one characteristic is economic nationalism, okay, and that is to become self-sufficient so you can be the biggest, baddest country around, so that you can produce all this stuff and people want to be you, and that you can provide your people with everything you want. Second characteristic of mercantilism is the gathering of bullion. If you look at some academic articles, mercantilism is sometimes called bullionism, and what that means is simply this: bullion is hard gold, hard silver, actual like coins themselves, the actual precious metal itself, and that's what they were trying to gather, and that's what they were trying to get up. Okay, well, so what they were doing is they were actually trying to gather and gain as much gold and as much silver as they possibly could. And so countries would trade, and they would keep these giant hoards of money. Now, unlike today where we don't have what we call a gold standard, their gold standard was actual real gold. They had gold that they would use for trading, and the countries, the governments themselves, would try to gather as much as possible because they believed that that is what made them strong. And even when they attacked other countries, it wasn't necessarily food that they didn't want other countries to have. It was gold. Gold is what makes you powerful, according to mercantilist beliefs. Third characteristic or third facet of mercantilism is that land equals power. Now, I want you to pause the video for a second, and I want you to think about it. So when I say pause, I'm going to freeze, and I want you to pause the video, and I want you to answer this question: what can you get from land that will give you power? On your notes, I want you to write down as many things as you can think of that land, how land can make you powerful. Ready, set, pause. All right, good. All right, so now, come back. All right, come on back, come back. All right, so now what I want you to think about is you guys wrote down some things. What you should have written down is land gives you actual physical land. One, you can grow crops. Two, you can get all the natural resources out of that, and that included gold. Okay, that's one of the things that you could get out of that. So that included actual gold and silver. You could get the crops. You could get the people working on the land. If you came to the New World, you could force the Native Americans into working for you. You could get all kinds of things just from the land, and all kinds of people from the land. Natural resources, actual gold itself, and the labor that goes along with the land. Fourth facet, okay, of mercantilism is that countries were seeking to gain a favorable balance of trade. And here's what that meant. They wanted to put out more than came in. They wanted to export, think back to your geography class, more than they imported. They wanted to send out of their country a lot more stuff, a lot more goods, a lot more product than went out. No, I'm sorry, than came in. And they absolutely did not want to send out their gold bullion. They wanted to hold on to that like nobody's business. They wanted to keep that gold and hoard that gold like a crazy cat lady keeps her cats. All right? Now, what role did all colonies play in this? Now, you're probably thinking, well, what does this have to do with the age of exploration and the age of colonialism that we're going to get into? Well, here's what colonies did for you. They did everything for the benefit of the mother country. Now, I want you to think about a really bad parent. Okay? And a really bad parent is going to use their kid to their own advantage. And that's what mother countries, that's what Britain, France, Spain, okay, Portugal, Holland, okay, the Netherlands, that's what they did to these countries. Is once they got colonies, they didn't really care about the people in the colonies. They didn't care about the people that went from their countries to those colonies. All they really cared about was how can you benefit me? And the game we're going to play tomorrow is going to do a really good job of illustrating this concept of the mother countries are more important than the colonies. They treated them unfairly. They tried to use them only for wealth. And again, think about the things that can come with that. Land, natural resources, the actual labor force on that land. All right. Not only could you do that, but you could then turn around and you could sell products to your people. In the United States, we had cotton from the American South, which we'll illustrate in a second. The cotton from the American South was a natural resource harvested by slaves, sent back over to England. England factories, in turn, took them and made them into shirts. Now, they took those shirts and then sold them back to the Americas. For example, the American colonies were not allowed to compete with England. They could not have their own factories, which eventually ended up developing in the Northeast. They could not have those very own things, all right, of their own, and couldn't produce them because you can't compete with a mother country. That's one of the central concepts in mercantilism, is that you cannot compete with a mother country. And so if you did, wouldn't respond well. Okay, and the mother country could force you to buy certain goods. Again, using the American example. Okay, the Boston Tea Party started because the British said, you guys can only buy British East India Company tea. That's it. You can't buy or trade with anybody else because colonies, you are there for only our benefit. And lastly but not leastly, governments, colonial governments, the mother countries could achieve their means, their success, by any means necessary. And what this means is that they can use economic motives. They can tell the colonies, you only trade with us and nobody else. All right? You can tell them whatever we want, and eventually, this even means using military strength to gather the gold, to keep the colonies from trading with anyone else, okay, to gaining land. So countries, what we notice, I mentioned yesterday that the commercial revolution and the age of exploration, as we talked about, led to increased national tension and an increase in led to an increase in competition and national rivalries. Well, the theory of mercantilism really aids in that, and really things start to heat up. Tomorrow in class, you're going to get a really great example of this and an explanation of it, and you're going to have mercantilism illustrated through a card game. Have a good evening, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Oh, yeah.